Okay everyone, welcome back to another video on Gran Turismo Sport. We're back with another race at Fuji in Group 3. And yeah, this time we're on the EU lobby. We're starting from P2 behind Miro with Mehdi behind us. And also Nick also in P5 and Fire in P7. This lobby is absolutely stacked with some of EU's fastest drivers. So if you do enjoy these videos, make sure you subscribe to the channel, hit that like button, and let me know in the comment section what you thought about this race. This was a really entertaining one, really intense race, so I hope you enjoy this. So starting from P2, I'm driving the Peugeot. P1 Miro is driving in the, I think it's the Mazda there. We've got Mehdi behind us in the GTR. I think Fire might have been in the Subaru, I can't remember, and Nick, I can't exactly remember what car he was in, but I'm sure we'll see as we get the race on the way. So yeah, starting from P2. Start of this race, very important not to battle with Miro. So first few laps, my aim here is to try and break the slipstream to Mehdi as we warm up them medium tyres. We're obviously starting on the medium tyres because starting on the soft tyres wasn't always best, because if he starts on mediums, we're going to get held up. So yeah, we decided to start on them medium tyres and try and stay in the slipstream of Miro in that Mazda. So we've got obviously Mehdi pushing in the GTR behind us. Now the GTR, very strong on the first sector, second sector. However, the last sector, the GTR is known not to be the best car because of the traction zones and the technical area. So that car was going to struggle there. We did know that. So going into this left-hand corner, trying our hardest to stay with Miro. He nearly broke the slipstream there, but luckily we managed to take quite good speed on the exit and just about hang in the slipstream of that Mazda. So working our way into the very slow chicane, and this is getting into the area where that Nissan really does not like this type of corner. So hitting the apex there almost perfectly, staying with Miro, and we've managed to keep that slipstream nice. And you can see behind us there, Mehdi there with the GTR losing control of the rear, and that is the issue with that car, especially on the medium tyres. It was always going to be a bit of a struggle to stay with the Peugeot and the Mazda in front of us there through this type of section. So yeah, you can see the gap. We've managed to break the slipstream to that GTR, which is vital in this race. So we've got onto the long straight, we've got rid of the slipstream, and we still have the slipstream to Miro. So this is almost a perfect start, because now we can concentrate on working with Miro for the start of this race and trying to make sure that we do not lose the slipstream. You see we press start there, the Fanatec bug where the wheel goes heavy, sometimes I have to press start and it fixes it. So yeah, we're going to bump draft Miro, because what's really important at this stage is not to battle. If I start fighting with Miro and we go side by side through the corners, all that's going to happen is the three cars that are right behind us there are all going to get involved with the slipstream, possibilities to lose positions. And yeah, it just makes no sense to fight too much on the first few laps. It's better to use a bit of racecraft, stay with the car in front, try and keep the pace good, and just try and build that gap up to the cars behind, rather than letting them join in the battle and then possibly losing more positions, and then it gets scruffy, and then who knows what could happen when you've got like 5 cars battling for one position. So yeah, staying with Miro through here, keeping it nice and smooth. Again, didn't really hook that corner up though, but Miro, every time that Mazda seemed very strong on that corner, but luckily we do still have the slipstream. And Mehdi, again, on that section there with the fast corners, did manage to close the gap a bit. However, as soon as we get to this section, you can see the gap there with Mehdi right behind us, almost in the slipstream. But then as soon as we get to this section, you can see that he just starts dropping off a bit in that Nissan GTR, where it does seem to struggle. But yeah, it's a very close race. You can see we got two groups of 2, and then I think we have Nick behind there as well in another group just behind the Subaru. It looks like he's driving possibly the Audi, if that's Nick, I'm not sure. There's an Audi R8 there, which I think might be Nick. We'll have to have a little look at the positions there. So yeah, that is Nick in the Audi R8, and we have Epic Toby in the Subaru in P4. So Mehdi in the GTR. So a nice mixture of cars, and that is pretty much always the case at this track, because Fuji is actually very good on BOP. It's quite comparable, I find, for BOP to tracks like Interlagos. So yeah, if a car's good on Interlagos, it's normally going to be pretty good at Fuji. As Miro there breaks a little bit late, probably didn't take into account that extra speed from the bump draft, and yeah, just about keeps it on track, and we're just staying ahead of Mehdi in that slipstream there. The gap's still 1.2 seconds to Mehdi, so we've got just a nice little bit of a buffer there. If we make a mistake, we should still be able to stay ahead of him. And yeah, just trying to stay with Miro and make sure we do not lose. Like I said, we're not trying to battle at this stage, we're just trying to work with him, try and play the long game here, because we know that you only have to be in the lead on the last lap. That is the most important thing, obviously. At this stage, it's just about kind of looking after your tyres. Even though we're on the mediums, we kind of still want to look after them a little bit. So just trying to keep it nice and smooth, and yeah, hit them apexes. And again, really smooth through. The Peugeot was actually probably, in my opinion, one of the better cars in this final section. So much rear traction, and it has quite a positive front end as well. So really nice through there, able to keep it smooth. Even when following another car, the Peugeot was just super smooth through this section. And again, you can see the lines, you can just take really tight lines with the Peugeot as we go into the final corner. Again, just trying to keep in that slipstream. You can see that Mehdi, again, 1.2, 1.3 seconds behind. He's not losing a massive amount of time, but he's going to lose a little bit now that we get the slipstream from Miro. However, this really took me by surprise. As we're going down the straight, Miro decides to pit for an extremely early pit stop. Now, we do know that the Mazda is one of the strongest cars on tyre wear, so yeah, it's worth a gamble. However, this was quite worrying for me because I was wondering if we could manage to stay ahead of Mehdi, but it turns out our pace was actually pretty solid, because as soon as we were on our own, we actually increased the gap to Mehdi there to about 1.4, 1.5 seconds. So you can see as we're coming through here, the gap is around 1.3, 1.4 seconds, and it was at 1.2 when we went over the start finishing line. So at the moment, it looks pretty good. However, as we look behind us here, you're going to see that they're 1.4 seconds behind. Now, I did not want to pit lap 4 because I kill soft tyres, so I wanted to stay out. And you see that nearly everyone behind us, directly behind us, decides to pit. Now, one of the cars was on soft tyres, so we know that that car is not going to be a threat. However, we've got Mehdi and Nick pitting from mediums and going onto soft tyres, and we're only 1.5 seconds ahead of that battle. So this is going to be pretty intense. We're going to have to make sure that this lap is a very good in-lap driving on the medium tyres. So we fast forward to the end of that lap, and we've actually done quite a solid lap here. However, you know, the undercut on the soft tyres versus warm mediums, it's around 1.5 to 2 seconds. So this was really nervous. Was we going to come out of the pits ahead of that group, or was we going to be right in the middle of that battle? So as we're coming out the pits, we can see that Miro with the massive undercut, and we got a lot of traffic in front of us, and that is actually not great. But we've also managed to come out ahead of Mehdi and Nick, and we've now got fresher soft tyres. So advantage us in this case. When we raced Eagle Fraggle, we had the more worn tyres on softs. This time, we're in the better position. We've actually got the fresher soft tyres versus the fast drivers that we're competing against. And obviously Miro has got absolutely way older tyres there at the front. And now these are some of the fastest EU drivers. These are some of the fastest top split EU drivers that we're coming up against here. And yeah, it was really enjoyable to be able to compete with these type of drivers. As we come through here, we've got a battle between two cars that haven't pitted yet. I needed to make a move as quick as possible here, so we decided to go down the right hand side, and we're gonna have to send this down the inside. It's a vital move, braking late, down to first gear, trying to hit the apex as well as we can, and we luckily managed to make that move and get ahead of that traffic. You see Mehdi get stuck in that battle a little bit there with Victor Ruse, and that's going to hold him up, which is ideal for me, but a very important move to put ourselves up into P8, technically P2, obviously once the pit stop phase is done. But yeah, that was a very, very important move. We had to do that move on two drivers there, managed to do it, and obviously with the fresher soft tyres, we're just able to brake a little bit later. Coming out there, we go a little bit wide there, but that's only going to lose us a tenth or two as we go onto the main straight. So this race is really shaping up to be a very intense battle. You can see we're racing with some really fast drivers, and we've got them behind us. We've managed to get that gap up to 1.3 seconds though, which again is going to be so important, especially with the fact that we've got softer tyres, because this basically enables me to go a little bit more aggressive. You can see I put the brake bias to -2. That was because I knew I was going to be pushing these tyres, and I knew we still had 7 laps to go. So yeah, we decided to obviously make sure that we take a bit more life out the front, giving ourselves a bit more rear traction for the traction zones, because we're going to need that if we catch up Miro and we need to go for a move. We're going to need a bit of rear traction. So yeah, coming through this section again, keeping that gap around 1.2 seconds to Mehdi there. And we really do need to try and build that gap up a little bit though, because if they start gaining on us, that's going to put us under a bit of pressure, and then we're not going to be able to catch Miro. We've got a car in front of us that hasn't pitted yet, and he's on very, very old tyres. I'm not sure if he was soft, but you can see now from this view, you can see how close the gaps are. Not very big at all. You can see Mehdi there just over a second behind us. So this is an extremely intense race, managing to keep it nice and smooth through this section. You can see Nick right behind Mehdi also there, and Fire managing to get himself up into P6, probably with a big undercut similar to what Miro done. Fire is very good on that tyre wear. So yeah, through here, we're coming through this final corner. You can see as we get onto this final corner, we have to back out of going for this move, and then he actually lets us go. So we lose a tenth or so, maybe a tenth or 2 tenths, but we were actually on a very good lap then. But I had to be really hesitant basically, because I didn't want to risk anything being in a good position in this race. We didn't want to just go for a move and end up spinning, so kind of backed out of it, but he let us go. So thank you to that driver, I appreciate it, as we go over the line with a pretty solid lap considering that final corner. Could have been a couple of attempts faster, but yeah, the battle is still on for the win in this race. You can see Miro is just there in front of us, only just over 2 seconds ahead, and he is going to be struggling with that tyre wear. He is really going to be struggling on the final laps of this race. So it's just about eking out a tenth here, a tenth there, and just gradually reeling him in and making sure also that we stay ahead of Mehdi. You can also see the gap there, about 1.6 seconds. So it does look like we've got that gap almost covered to Mehdi there. We've able to build up about 3-4 tenths. So that fresher tyres by 1 lap, obviously with the tyre wear ratio, is actually really helping us out in this race. And at the moment, it looks like our strategy could be working quite well in this race. So now we've just got to concentrate, try and put in the sector times, try and make sure that we just catch up as much as we can to Miro. Now, in fair play to Miro, this was his first race in that car. I think he'd been driving other cars, so he wasn't probably 100% used to it. But Miro obviously has driven Mazda in FIA, so he knows how to drive that car. He's very used to it. And yeah, he knows how to get the most out of that car, especially with the tyre wear and stuff like that. So this is going to be interesting. Will he be able to do the 9 laps on the soft tyres? Will the Peugeot, we're doing 7 laps, so he's going to have 2 lap older tyres. Will that come into play on the final few laps in this race as we again run a little bit wide out of that final corner? That again is going to always lose you a tenth or so. However, the Mazda's one of the weaker cars in the straight, so we should still be able to gain a little bit from Miro down the straight. You can see we're gaining 2 tenths, 3 tenths, something like that on the main straight. So the Peugeot, not the worst car on the straights. It's not the fastest, but it's definitely not the worst compared to the cars like the Mazda and stuff. As we work our way through the really fast flowing section, fast forwarding the action now as we're on lap 9, and again you can see that we're keeping that gap fairly consistent to Mehdi behind us, around 1.4 to 1.5 seconds. And we've also gained another couple of attempts. We're down under 2 seconds now to Miro, and you can see now that we're actually about the same gap away from Mehdi as we are from Miro. So we're right in the middle of this battle for the lead. We've got P3 right behind us and P1 in front of us. Now we are actually gaining though. We're in the best position in this race as we get onto lap 10. With just 3 more laps to go in this race. Are we going to be able to catch him up? We're gaining on him, but we wasn't gaining on him at a really fast rate. However, I did know that with obviously pitting that early, it's going to be the final lap really where his tyres are going to be really gone, and also pretty much the end of lap 11 where his tyres are going to be fading massively. So we just got to be patient, keep it smooth, keep pushing the way we're doing. We've gone to -1 brake bias to try and get a bit more rotation through the corners. Decided to do that to try and just give myself a bit more acceleration through the corners, obviously, because when we were on -2, it was taking a bit of life out the front. So I decided to just go for it with -1 brake bias, because I found it the fastest way to drive this car on the soft tyres when you take into account the tyre wear and stuff. Although -2 did give you better rear tyres, but I decided to just go for this and not really worry too much about the tyres. 7 laps, you do normally need to do a tiny bit of saving with the Peugeot, not a massive amount when it comes to the tyres. So I knew that you could push, and the advantage we've got is we're in the best situation. So into the final corner as we're about to come to the end of lap 10, and again on the traction zone, this is where you can really see that the Mazda's starting to fade. You can see that we gained quite a bit there. As we go down the straight, we've gained another few tenths on him just on that straight from the traction zone, and we've got that gap to Mehdi around 1.7 seconds. So it's starting to look quite secure in terms of the battle between ourselves and the cars behind. Now it's all about ourselves versus Miro. Can we manage to take this win in this quite intense race on Daily Race C at Fuji with some of the highest rated and fastest drivers in the EU region? This is going to be very intense. Can we manage to somehow find a way past Miro through the long right hand corner here, trying to keep it smooth into the braking zone, braking nice and early now because that tyre wear is starting to take effect. You can see on the telemetry there, the tyres are starting to fade. So when your tyres do get this low, you do need to factor that in by braking a fraction earlier than what you would normally, obviously with fresher tyres. So again, into the final section, you can just see how close this battle is. Miro P1, myself in P2. We've got Mehdi there in the Nissan GTR, followed right behind by Nick in the Audi R8. So is this going to be the time when we can try and push? You can see that Miro is really struggling with them tyres through here. He's understeering, he's oversteering. That decision to pit on lap 3 might be coming back to haunt him here on these final few laps. Again, you can see the traction, it's really struggling, that Mazda, to get the power down. And what we've got to do now is we're going to go very tight onto the apex and try and get really into that slipstream, because we know that the slipstream is going to then give us a nice toe down straight. And also I knew that we'd be better on traction than Miro because we've got 2 lap fresher tyres, and that has worked out really well. You can see that gap on the 3 temps pretty much. We've got the slipstream down the straight. Are we going to be able to go through move into turn 1? We fake it down the left and just about keep the left hand tyre within the white line there, and we've managed to get the move done. On the inside, can we get the car stopped though for the braking zone? Down to first gear to try and rotate the car. Early upshift to second gear to keep that traction, and we give him space on the outside and we pull a nice move off there, nice and clean, taking P1. Not much Miro could really do with the tyres that he's got on that car at the moment, and now Miro will try and fight this back if he can. I'm sure he will as we go through here. We're going to have to try and keep this nice and smooth and try and make sure that we don't make any mistakes on this lap now. So again, trying to make sure that we don't brake too early and he goes for a move. So trying to take an almost defensive line into that corner because I wasn't sure if he was going to try and send it. Losing a couple of attempts probably there as we work our way down into the next braking zone. And now we've just got to try and make sure that he doesn't go for a move. We've got quite a nice gap up there. So yeah, we should be fine into the braking zone, hit the apex nicely, and you can see that we've actually got that gap and managed to keep that position to Miro behind us. But you can see that Nick right behind Miro now, and this is where Miro's really struggling. You can see the car almost drifting in our mirror there behind us, but it does look like if we can just hold this now, build up a bit of a gap. We need to get about 4 temps ahead of him, 5 temps ahead of him going on to the final straight, and then with the traction advantage we'll have in this Peugeot, this will be a very nice win for us in this top split daily race C with some very, very fast drivers. So yeah, onto the straight. We've managed to do this strategy almost perfect, and what an intense race. We are going to take this win, and this actually boosted our DR up to its highest rating ever, over 80, nearly onto 88,000 DR. So yeah, a really enjoyable week for myself at Fuji, and a very strong week for myself. I really enjoyed that race. Hope you lot enjoyed it. Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so, and let me know in the comment section what you thought about that race. Thanks again for watching, everyone. Bye.